This morning, Ukraine's capital woke to the sound of air raid sirens and the sight of the spoils of war. The wrecked Russian tanks which now line Kyiv's central avenue in a mockery of the usual display of military might. Ukrainians walk their dogs on this, their national holiday, though a fifth of their country is occupied by Russia, and the threat of rocket strikes means that mass gatherings are banned. President Zelensky and his wife Olena laid flowers to Ukraine's war dead. This former stand-up comedian has been transformed into the embodiment of national resistance, telling his compatriots that the Russians thought they would be on parade here today after being greeted with flowers and champagne, but that Ukraine had clenched its fists and held on for the last 6 months.
І ми нарешті стали дійсно єдині, нова нація, яка з'явилась на світ 24 лютого о 4 ранку. Не народилась, а відродилась нація, яка не плакала, не кричала, не злякалась, не втекла, не здалась.
The Order of Liberty is awarded to Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Neither did Boris Johnson forget. On a surprise visit to Kyiv this afternoon, he was awarded Ukraine's Order of Liberty after giving more military aid, over £2 billion worth, than any other European leader. His message was as much to Britons struggling with high prices back home as to anyone here.
If we're paying in our energy bills for the evils of Vladimir Putin, the people of Ukraine are paying in their blood. And that's why we know we must stay the course. Because if Putin were to succeed, then no country on Russia's perimeter would be safe, and if Putin succeeds, it would be a green light to every autocrat in the world, a signal that borders can be changed by force.
The Prime Minister walked through Independence Square after pledging more drones and missiles, quite the swan song for a leader with less than a fortnight left in office. He urged other countries to send more weapons and not to bring Vladimir Putin in from the cold. The war began with a lightning Russian attack on Kyiv aimed at toppling the Zelensky government and rapidly adding to the eastern territory Russia's occupied since 2014. A month later saw the height of Russian gains, pushing in from the north and from occupied Crimea in the southeast. But by May, Russia's battle for Kyiv and the north was over, though they'd captured Mariupol in the south after laying siege to it. Now there's a stalemate along a front line stretching some 1,500 miles, despite slight Ukrainian advances near Zaporizhia and Kharkiv further north. Estimates vary, but about 9,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed, compared with about 20,000 Russian soldiers. Ukrainian civilian casualties are thought to number over 5,500, and the UN reckons over 6.6 million Ukrainians are now refugees. Ukraine's second city, Kharkiv, was even quieter than usual thanks to a 48-hour curfew. The Russians are thought to be firing about 10,000 artillery shells most days, though still not enough to capture Ukraine's second city, while the Ukrainians don't have enough firepower of their own to mount a significant advance, though the tempo of this war could be about to increase before winter sets in. Volodymyr Zelensky's task is not just to rally his besieged country, but its foreign backers as well, to stop high energy prices from dividing and distracting them, to keep winning the battle for hearts and minds. Not to abandon Ukraine in its hour of need, a land in which over 100,000 buildings are reckoned to have been destroyed in the last 6 months.
Jonathan Rugman with that report. Well, earlier I spoke to Igor Zhokva, the deputy head of President Zelensky's office, about the state of the war. And I began by asking him for his thoughts 6 months on from the Russian tanks rolling into Ukraine.
There were no panic the first day of war. There was only concentrated efforts, understanding that the situation has significantly changed, that the war has started, and everyone should be at his or her own place to overcome, to withstand. The president was on his place, the team was on their places, the soldiers, the Ukrainian armed forces were in their places, and that's where we are. Half a year of war, Ukraine is not only withstanding the war, but having all the promises for future success, for future victory.
So the Russians, of course, made some terrible mistakes at the beginning. They seem to have learned from some of those mistakes. And what you have now, it appears to me, is a stalemate.
That stalemate, if like you put it, is definitely not in the interest of armed forces of Ukraine. It's definitely not in the interest of Ukraine, because the time plays for Russian hands. The more they drag on, the more people they kill, the more terrible situation is. And definitely we will not go in and do not want to prolong it till winter time. That's why we really may have to make the counter advances, and we are ready to make the counter advances. What we lack is enough weapons. When you create things, MLRS, artillery systems to start the counter artillery battle. We need armored vehicles and tanks to bring our manpower to the hotspots on the battlefield, to start counter advance.
Okay, so just to get this clear, if you had the right weapons now, you would use this window of opportunity before winter to launch a massive counter-offensive against the Russians.
Definitely, because our aim is to liberate all the territories of Ukraine, and that's what we'll definitely do with the support of our partners.
Including Crimea?
Well, Crimea is Ukraine.
Yeah.
No one doubts it. So do we have the right to liberate Ukrainian territory? Definitely we do.
There are millions of Ukrainians who've fled their country to other parts of Europe. There are, I think, 125,000, if not more, in this country, in Britain. Would you like them to come home now, or should they still stay abroad?
Definitely, we want all our people to come back to native Ukraine. And I will tell you that most of them do want to come immediately. But if you ask me whether there are enough security guarantees, safety in all the cities of Ukraine, definitely the answer is no.
Finally, there was a familiar face in Kyiv today, that of our Prime Minister, outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He's been one of your most vocal supporters. He likes spending a lot of time in Ukraine. I think he feels more comfortable there sometimes than he does at home. Will you miss him when he's gone?
We miss his drive, we will miss his energy, we will miss his creativity, and definitely we will miss his personal support. But what we will not miss is the support of the United Kingdom. I'm sure, I'm much more sure. Whoever wins the leadership in the party, definitely he or she will be supporting Ukraine as strong as only UK can.
Do you have a preference, Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss?
Well, we trust in the wisdom of British people.
You've got to trust in the wisdom of the Conservative Party in this case.
Well, they are part of the British society as well.
Okay. Igor Zhokva, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Matt.
Igor Zhokva speaking to me earlier. Well, Mikhail Kazanyov was Vladimir Putin's first prime minister and is now a fierce critic of the Russian leader. He left Russia early this year and is now in an undisclosed location somewhere in Europe. I began by asking him if Mr. Putin will mobilize further to end the military stalemate.
They cannot announce mobilization, official mobilization, because in this case that will be announcement of war. It means that Putin failed with his special operations, as he called it. They didn't cut Ukraine from the Black Sea, what they wanted to do. And right now, of course, they need some kind of break, and they will be looking for some kind of negotiations. But from my opinion, that's absolutely useless. And I hope later by the end of the year, Ukrainian government, Ukrainian army will be some kind of leveling up of their military capability.
What we're hearing, I wonder if you're hearing the same, is that the Russian military has also got problems in terms of supply, munitions.
Yeah, we have these reports, and there is a special even law was adopted so that which is obligatory for all enterprises to implement instructions of Ministry of Defense, even private or state-owned.
I wonder if the world economy hits a recession, as many people are predicting later this year, and the price of oil suddenly falls off the cliff, as well as the price of gas, that this is a waiting game that Vladimir Putin cannot really afford to play.
That's exactly the factors you have just described. They are all in place. And by the end of this year, just the packages of sanctions produces just complete stoppage of purchase of Russian oil. And next year, just Russian gas. It is collapse for the Russian budget. Half of the federal budget revenue now comes from oil and gas. And that's why just that I'm saying and emphasizing that Mr. Putin needs something to happen now, victory or negotiations or break or whatever thing, because just in few months, the situation will be completely different for him.
You're an opponent of Vladimir Putin. You've fallen out with each other. But I wonder if he were to sue for some kind of settlement or peace right now, he can claim that he's already redrawn the map of Europe.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Just negotiations with Putin and this particular stage is absolutely useless. Mr. Putin already demonstrated that his promises means nothing. And in this case, just I think everyone already should come to the conclusion that Putin's regime should be defeated. That's the only way just to have peace. And Ukraine should liberate all its territory and to support its territorial integrity and sovereignty. I think that is the way right now. Mr. Putin already lost and passed all just points of no return.
Mikhail Kasyanov, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.